You're watching News Central now on News Central Television with me, Blessings Musugu. The top stories at this hour. President Tinubu assures state governors dismisses fears over takeover of local government structures over autonomy. Organized labor pushes for minimum wage increase in 2025 amid rising inflation. Reactions trail abolition of death penalty in Zimbabwe. We've got the details in a moment. We begin this hour by telling you that President Bola Tinubu has urged state governors to collaborate with local government chairmen in a bid to drive development at the grassroots of the country. And President Tinubu, while speaking to the governors in Lagos following a visit to his Lagos home, says that reports of a feud between the federal and state governors is misplaced, as the federal government is not interested in taking over the structures of local governments from their state. He called for collaboration between all tiers of government with the welfare of citizens as their core objective.
There was some gossip that maybe we had a disagreement or quarrel and everything when it was local government's autonomy. No. Just drive the development down there to the local government authorities. Nobody wants to take the control away from you. But collaboration, let's do it together and make sure Nigeria is better off from it.
Now, Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima has expressed optimism over the rebound of the nation's economy. The Vice President spoke to newsmen after a meeting with lawmakers in Lagos State, saying that the nation's economy is on an upward trajectory and will continue to improve in 2025. He says that the executive arm of government will work with the parliament to ensure that no stone is left unturned in improving the lives of citizens and end difficulties experienced in the past.
I'm highly optimistic about tomorrow. I believe we have turned the corner, and inshallah we shall have a very robust economic activities in the new year. I believe Nigerians will prosper. The economy has started picking up, and in the coming weeks and months, Nigerians will start smiling for the better. We are working assiduously with the National Assembly to come up with robust solutions to our national challenges. There is no nation that is immune to the economic headwinds across the world. The crisis in Ukraine and so many other global trends are affecting us adversely because we are part of the global community. But I want to assure Nigerians that the economy is turning the corner. Sure. By the grace of God, we have crossed the Rubicon and we are on a path to sustain growth. We wish Nigerians well.
Now, the Conference of the United Political Parties, CUPP, has blasted President Bola Tinubu, saying that his speeches, which have so far not been matched with corresponding action, are pushing more Nigerians into excruciating poverty. The National Secretary of the CUPP, Peter Ame, stated this in a response to the President's New Year Day nationwide address on Wednesday. According to him, 2024 was a very harsh year for most Nigerians because of the impulsive decisions taken by the government. Ame stated that when the president said he had dealt with corruption, there were no facts to support the assertion. While speaking on the presidential plan to float a company to reduce inflation, Ame said it was another ploy to increase administrative bottlenecks into the process. Well, to help us unpack this, we're now joined by a public policy and political analyst, Great Imo, who joins us from Abuja. Thank you so much, Mr. Imot, for joining us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
An absolute pleasure as well. Now, the CUPP claims that President Tinubu's speeches did lack corresponding action. How would you assess his administration's effectiveness in translating policies into tangible results for Nigerians?
We as Nigerians, we don't need CUPP to tell us what we're going through and to understand what is happening in Nigeria. Sometimes when I hear this leaders talk, they are those in position authority. We are not carrying facts and figures. They are not painting the picture clearly for Nigerians to understand where we are, where we'll be in the next 6 months, and where we're headed. So all these motivational speeches, it's not for governance.
All right, Mr. Great, I sincerely apologize, but we're having issues connecting properly with your audio. Hopefully, we can get you back to discuss this. But in the meantime, the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, says that President Bola Tinubu's New Year message does not offer hope for Nigerians. In a statement issued on Wednesday, Debo Ologunagba, a PDP spokesperson, described the president's New Year speech as self-satisfying. The opposition party spokesperson said Tinubu's administration had become completely disconnected and uncertain or unconcerned with the economic hardship in the country. Ologunagba noted that the president did not articulate any solution-based direction for the critical sectors such as electricity, oil and gas, road infrastructure, and food production, among others. Now, the PDP spokesperson added that Nigerians have lost faith in Tinubu's administration and have since moved on with an eagerness to replace his administration at the next election. We now head to the parliament, where the leader of the Nigerian Senate, Okpeyemi Bamidele, said that consideration of the 49.7 trillion naira 2025 budget and the tax reform bills are two items stopping the National Assembly's agenda in the new year. Bamidele made the statement in his New Year message to Nigerians, made available to newsmen in Abuja on Wednesday. In the message, entitled Another Year of Limitless Opportunities, Bamidele said the next few weeks will be devoted to scrutinizing the 2025 appropriation bill, tax reform bills 2024, and the investigation of economic sabotage in the petroleum industry, among others. Now, according to him, key economic reform initiatives that had been in the pipeline to open up Nigeria for real businesses, which would create limitless opportunities, would also be deliberated upon. And speaking of deliberations, the Kano state government has voiced its opposition to the proposed tax reform bills currently before the National Assembly, describing them as detrimental to the welfare of Nigerians, particularly in the northern region. Governor Abba Yusuf, who was represented by his deputy Aminu Abdulsalam Gwazo, declared the government's position during the 2025 New Year's celebration held at the Filin Mahaha Kofaranasa Open Theatre. The deputy governor's chief press secretary, Ibrahim Garba Shaibu, confirmed the state government's opposition via a press statement made available to newsmen on Wednesday in Kano. Now, he lauded the resilience of Kano residents amidst economic challenges, describing the proposed tax hike as ill-timed, lopsided, and inimical to the unity of the country. Let's still stay with tax matters for a bit. Now, organized labor says it is advocating for an annual adjustment to Nigeria's 70,000 naira minimum wage to reflect inflation. According to the president of the Trade Union Congress, Festus Osifo, the proposal aims to link wage increases to yearly inflation rate. He noted that waiting for periodic reviews, even under the new 3-year adjustment rule, fails to keep pace with rising costs. Now, Osifo suggested that inflation figures released annually by the National Bureau of Statistics should be applied to the minimum wage. He explained that if inflation stands at 35%, the wage would be adjusted accordingly. Labor unions argue that the current 70,000 naira introduced in July 2024 is insufficient amid surging living costs fueled by higher energy prices and subsidy removal. Earlier on, a public affairs analyst, Francis Chilaka, spoke to us on the development.
I've been issued. Labour was not sure what they really wanted, and nobody would take Labour seriously anymore. What they're saying now, they're behaving like the federal government. They're putting the cart before the horse. These are things they should have looked at from the beginning when they started negotiations with government, not allowing a situation where the decisions have been taken, the bill has been signed into law, and then now you're waking up from slumber to remember that there's inflation. You also recall that Labour had claimed that the arrangement they had with government was that as at the time they agreed on 70,000, there was not going to be increase in fuel pump price. But what we see is completely different from what Labour is saying. So I really don't know who's going to take Labour serious at this point in time.
But still staying with tax matters, the federal government has launched the 2024 withholding tax regulations, marking a step forward in modernizing Nigeria's tax system. Effective January 1st, 2025, the regulations approved by President Bola Tinubu in July and gazetted in October aim to simplify compliance and support key economic sectors like SMEs, manufacturing, and agriculture. A presidential fiscal policy chairman, Taiwo Oyedele, announced the changes on New Year's Day, highlighting key features like the reduced withholding tax rates for low-margin businesses and exemptions for SMEs, farmers, and manufacturers. The regulations also streamline tax credit processes and address compliance challenges, promoting transparency and reducing tax evasion. Now, officials hope these reforms will foster growth and ease the financial burden on businesses. Earlier on, a public policy analyst, John Akirili, spoke to us and shared his thoughts on this. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, an Anglican Archbishop and the driver have been released after 1 month in the kidnapper's den. The kidnapped senior Anglican cleric, Most Reverend Professor Godwin Okpala, has been freed. Archbishop Okpala was set free alongside his driver, and he confirmed his freedom in a post on his Facebook page on Thursday morning. Okpala, a retired Archbishop of the Niger province and Bishop of Nnewi, was released 1 month after he was abducted. He had gone missing on his way to Umuchu, a community in Anambra State, for a burial ceremony. Details of his release are still sketchy as of the time of filing this report, but it's been celebrated on various social media platforms of the Anglican Communion. And one of such platforms is the official Facebook page of St. Stephen's Anglican Church, Nnewi. Let's head now to politics, where ahead of the 2027 election, the 2023 presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, says there is no merger deal yet with the People's Democratic Party, the New Nigeria People's Party, or any other party. The former Anambra State governor, who stated this on Thursday morning when he held a press conference in Abuja on the state of the nation, said no agreement has been established with other parties just yet. Also, Obi described the security situation in the country as unfortunate, saying that Nigerians die needlessly due to banditry, terrorism, and kidnapping for ransom. He also said the level of corruption in Nigeria remained high, and so is the cost of governance, which has led to an astronomical increase in public debt under the current administration of President Bola Tinubu of the APC. Let's now feel the pulse of Nigerians as they ushered the new year 2025. In a city long regarded as a symbol of resilience amidst conflict, the residents of Maiduguri in Nigeria's Borno State stepped into 2025 with a renewed sense of hope for peace and development. News Central's Moru Kirawa, who traversed the capital city of Borno State, reports.
It's a bright and hopeful day in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. With a significant decrease in insurgency-related violence in recent years, families have resumed their daily activities with a sense of normalcy.
I'm smiling because of 2024 we suffered, but I hope I enter 2025 well.
There is a lot of experience in this life, most especially in this 2024. You know, there's a lot of challenges, most especially these floods.
Waɗanda Allah ya kiraye su lokacin su yayi, Allah ya ba su huta. Mu kuma da muke nan, bari duk abin da za mu yi bari mu yi shi a cikin hanya mai kyau.
The first day of January 2025 also coincides with the start of the Islamic month of Rajab, adding a spiritual significance for many in the community.
New Year is for all of us, whether you are a pagan or traditionalist or Muslim or Christian. We thank God for bringing us today, New Year. And what do we ask from God? We ask God to protect us, to guide us, to bless us, to strengthen the unity between the people living in this country, Nigeria.
Gaskiya muna fama wani sabarin yunwa ma yana fama asibiti abincin da zai iya ci ma babu. So gaskiya muna neman taimako inda za a iya tallafa a rarrage wasu abubuwa kuma mu shiga da farin ciki.
Meanwhile, Muhammad Umar, a trader in Maiduguri, is busy attending to customers.
Abubuwa ya tsada wasu sun yi giving up amma gaskiya mu dai muna nan muna addu'a kuma Allah ya gyara mana gaba Allah zai kawo mana sauki.
For commercial tricycle operators in Maiduguri, the New Year season brings its own challenges, with fewer passengers due to families relaxing at home to mark the holiday.
Ana sabon shekara ba zai mu zauna a gida ba saboda yanayin gari. Ka san in ka fita ka samu na yau zaka kashe na gobe za ka ƙara fita nema dan yanzu ba ajewa. Gaskiya garin ya zama abin da ya zama. Shi zaka kawai mun fita dai ga mu nan dai muna ta zazzagayawa. Allah ya taimake mu.
As families who travel to return to Maiduguri and other parts of the state, the new year brings a renewed energy and hope for a brighter and more peaceful future. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Today is the second day of January 2025, a day after Nigerians joined the rest of the world to welcome the new year. The Nigerian government had earlier given workers time off to celebrate the festivities with their families. And News Central's correspondent Joshua Imarai is out in the capital, Abuja, to feel the pulse of the city after the New Year day. Joshua, Happy New Year. Can you hear me? All right, Joshua, it's day 2 of the New Year 2025. If you can hear me, please go ahead and tell us how the mood in the FCT is.
Like you rightly said, today is day 2 of the new year. This is the second day in the new year, and I think Nigerians here in the capital are still relishing the holidays period because this place used to be a beehive of activities, quite tight and packed with Nigerians who are going about their daily activities or the other. But what we can see now is a scantily littered street filled with quite a number of Nigerians, and it is clear that civil servants are yet to be back on their table and their desks and the likes. But I can tell you for sure that the only enterprise that are open this period are banks, essential services, and the likes. As you can see, the street here is scanty. This place used to be a beehive of activities. It's cars parked from that end to the other end here, but today that is not the case. As Nigerians, maybe they are still enjoying their holiday and living in their moment. I was in the car this morning. I heard a lady complaining of going back to work, and she was saying, what's the essence? That it's still the new year. But that is what we see here in Abuja.
Right, and have the workers fully resumed work? I can see that the roads are dry.
I can confirm to you that roads are dry here, yes. Right from my junction, I could basically count the amount of the cars are parked at every hour. So the cars are scanty on the road, and it shows that Nigerians too are scanty on the street, as major Nigerians are still back in their home enjoying the holidays.
All right, Joshua Marai, thank you so much for giving us the update from the FCT. We're definitely going to see how today looks whether or not the people return to the roads, but it's a holiday, so we're going to let them enjoy their holiday. Thank you, Joshua.
It's a pleasure.
All right, very shortly we go to another story where the National Population Commission says that it has registered over 10 million children in the last 3 months, presenting them with birth certificates. The chairman of the commission, Issa Kwara, made this known while speaking to newsmen after a presentation by the First Lady Oluremi Tinubu to the parents of the first babies of the year with birth certificates at the Asokoro General Hospital in Abuja. Okwara, who was represented by the Federal Commissioner from Katsina State, spoke with newsmen with the Director General of the Commission, saying that national identification numbers were also attached to the certificates, a new strategy by the Commission to get babies registered.
In the last 3 months, we have registered more than 10 million children aged 0 to 5 years. And this registration is continuous. We will now henceforth concentrate more of under 1 year registration. And we are making tremendous progress.
It's a legal right that any child born in Nigeria is supposed to be identified, recognized, and located. And one of the instruments for doing that is the birth certificate.
Now, the wife of the Delta State Governor, Tobora Oborevori, has harped on the importance of raising godly children in the country. News Central's correspondent, Austin Azu, reports that Governor Oborevori stated this when she visited the Central Hospital, Warri in Warri South local government area, as she welcomed the first baby of the year, presented gifts to the babies, as well as offset medical bills of patients undergoing treatment in the hospital. While advising residents of a state to embrace the new year with great hope and a positive mindset, the governor's wife charged mothers to inculcate good morals in their children as demanded by God.
They should take care of the children, cherish them, like I quoted in the scripture for the book of Psalm 127, verse 3, that children, little children are the heritage of God. The fruit of the womb is their reward. The children they are having today is the fruit of their reward. And may God give them the enablement to take care of the children, to bring them up to the society.
Abia State on the New Year Day recorded multiple births of new babies in different government hospitals in Abia and Umuahia. However, one of the babies arrived earlier than the rest, prompting the visit of the wife of the governor. News Central's Chinwe Ugeli reports.
Just when citizens were basking in the euphoria of the new year, some pregnant mothers in Abia State were writhing in pains of labor. By 8 minutes past midnight, the first baby arrived at the Abba South Ward Primary Health Center.
Abba has been productive and continue to be productive. In 2023, we have a total number of 144 babies delivered on this health center. In 2024 that ended yesterday, we had 110 babies safely delivered in this center.
That our hospitals, our primary health care centers are working and are working actively to deliver live babies.
Wife of Governor Alex Otte, Priscilla had to pay special homage to the new baby, bearing gifts.
It is really eating of joy indeed. And I'm really happy that this is happening at a primary health care center. Like the commissioner had said, all the intervention of the governor in the health care sector, I'm glad that it is working, and we want to see, we know that before the end of this administration, our primary health care centers will be world class.
The same health center had another cry of a baby 2 minutes after the first one arrived, and the third one 15 minutes later. The wife of the governor also visited the 3 babies who also arrived on this New Year Day at the Federal Medical Center in Umuahia.
So it is with so much joy that we've come to welcome this bundles of joy to the world on this New Year.
For the rest of the citizens who are oblivious of what transpired today at these health facilities, life goes on with high expectations in the new year.
This year now, I say God bless me this year. So I want to leave this country and travel to outside country. I know that God will do them.
Let them do the economic. Let them help the masses. Let them empower youth, empower people.
The streets in Umuahia that would naturally have been deserted today are still too busy with activities. The much anticipated year is here with us, and how successful and befitting it will be for everyone by the last month of the year depends on how well the take-off is. In Umuahia for News Central, I am Chinwe Ugeli.
Donald Trump's return to the White House, Israel's expansion of the Gaza war into Lebanon, extreme weather conditions, and the Olympics that lit up Paris were among the news events that marked 2024. News Central's international correspondent, Afia Hagen, looks back at the major stories that made the headlines across the globe.
More than a year into the war unleashed when Palestinian armed group Hamas launched the deadliest attack on Israel in its history on October 7th, 2023, there has been no let-up in the violence. The conflict expanded as Israel turned its focus on the Iran-backed Hezbollah militia and extended its offensive into Lebanon. Repeated ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Gaza have failed, and those who remain in Gaza have been plunged into what the UN has described as an abyss of suffering and the most profound of humanitarian disasters. Ukraine in August launched a surprise incursion into Russia's Kursk region. Russia has responded with deadly strikes, and Kiev's outgunned and outmanned troops have struggled to hold back steady advances from Russian forces. The West, Ukraine and South Korea say thousands of North Korean troops are in Russia. In November, Ukraine for the first time used Western-supplied long-range missiles against Russia after getting US and British clearance.
I think this will certainly help the Ukrainians, but I don't think it's going to be decisive for the direction of the war. My guess is that the Biden administration wants Putin, and he wants the North Koreans to understand that there are costs to escalation.
Sudan's civil war is now in its second year. The conflict, driven by a power struggle between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, has already seen the deaths of around 15,000 people. A further 10.2 million have been displaced, both internally and to unstable areas in neighbouring Chad, Ethiopia and South Sudan. In Senegal, Bassirou Diomaye Faye became the youngest president since independence in 1960, elected in March at the age of 44 on the promise of radical change in a country where 75% of the population is under 35 years old. Donald Trump once again stunned the world and wrong-footed pollsters who had projected a very tight race to win the US presidential election. He won all 7 swing states, keeping control of the House and winning back the Senate. He also won the popular vote. He beat his Democrat rival Kamala Harris, who had been parachuted into the process just 100 days before the election after outgoing President Joe Biden pulled out.
I think my own personal view, for what it's worth, is that it's an election that the Democrats lost. It was more a referendum, an indictment of the current administration than it was an endorsement of Trump himself. Trump, as the alternative, looked pretty good to a lot of people.
European elections in June confirmed nationalist and far-right parties rising in France, Germany, Belgium, Austria, Italy and the Netherlands. This also translated at the national level. Austria's far-right Freedom Party won a historic victory in legislative elections. In France, a Republican bloc prevented the far-right National Rally from coming to power in snap parliamentary elections, but fell out swiftly after the vote. In the UK, Labour won the general election in a landslide. The new Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, pledged to steer the country towards calmer waters in his first address to the nation. The Conservative Party lost more than 250 seats in its worst ever defeat and now faces life in opposition. The outgoing Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, resigned as party leader, with Kemi Badenoch taking over. There was no shortage of drama for the British royal family in 2024. The first 3 months of the year were dominated by royal health shocks. In January, we learned that King Charles III and the Princess of Wales were hospitalised and having surgery. February 2024 brought news of King Charles III's cancer diagnosis. Doctors found it during his treatment for an enlarged prostate. The Princess of Wales started her health journey in January with a planned abdominal surgery. Although initially details on her condition were vague, things changed in March when she told the world that cancerous cells were found during that surgery through a heartfelt video message.
That so many people will have been so moved by the way that she conducted herself during that 2-minute plus broadcast. But there's no doubt at all that it's a very, very difficult time for the institution of monarchy, because how you plan, which is what it's all about with being seen to be believed, as the Queen Elizabeth once said, how you plan for the future, it's very difficult.
The summer of 2024 was the hottest ever recorded on Earth. Relentless global warming provoked heat waves, droughts and deadly flooding, with wet weather proving particularly dramatic. In a September of wild weather, Hurricane Helene pounded the southeast United States, Typhoon Krathon slammed into Taiwan, and Storm Boris brought floods and devastation to Central Europe. In October, a devastating Mediterranean storm lashed eastern Spain, triggering its worst floods in decades that killed more than 200 people. Sean Diddy Combs, a rapper and music mogul credited with helping launch the careers of some of the biggest stars in recent years, could be facing more than 100 new lawsuits just 2 weeks after he was arrested by federal agents in New York. The latest wave of legal filings was announced on October 1st, as more than 100 people have planned to file lawsuits against Combs, alleging that he sexually abused and exploited them. This came just weeks after Combs was arrested in September on sex trafficking and racketeering. His trial date is set for May 5th next year. The Olympic Summer Games in the French capital brought a welcome respite, particularly in the host country that had for weeks been gripped by bitter political jockeying caused by snap parliamentary elections. But for 3 sunny weeks, Paris and its world-famous monuments and sites, from the Eiffel Tower to Versailles, welcomed a spectacular display of sport, kicking off with an extravagant, if rain-drenched, opening ceremony along the Seine. Records tumbled and stars were crowned, from home crowd darling and swim sensation Leon Marchand to US gym genius Simone Biles, who made a joyful return to glory. US megastar Taylor Swift pursued her world tour, which in 2023 had already topped the symbolic bar of $1 billion in revenue. It wrapped in Vancouver with more than $2 billion in ticket sales. Swift kicked off the European leg of her Eras tour in May in Paris and rounded it off in August, attracting hundreds of thousands of fans or Swifties. But the 3 concerts scheduled in Vienna were cancelled after authorities arrested a man in connection with an Islamist attack plot. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagan.
Many thanks for staying with us. Now, the news continues in West Africa, where Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara announced in his end-of-year address that French forces will withdraw from the country in January, further loosening military ties between France and its former colonies in West Africa. Ouattara confirmed that the 43rd Bima Marine Infantry Battalion, stationed at Port Bois in Abidjan, will be handed over to Ivory Coast Armed Forces by January 2025. France has been restructuring its military presence now in the region following its expulsion from Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, where governments critical of French influence have taken power. Last month, Senegal and Chad also announced the departure of French troops. On the 26th of December, France officially returned its first military base in Chad, marking the end of its presence in the Sahel nation.
Nous avons décidé du retrait concerté et organisé des forces françaises en Côte d'Ivoire. Ainsi, le camp du 43e BIMA, le bataillon d'infanterie de marine de Port-Boué, sera rétrocédé aux forces armées de Côte d'Ivoire dès ce mois de janvier 2025. Pour marquer cette nouvelle étape de la vie de notre armée, j'ai décidé de baptiser ce camp du nom du général Ouattara Thomas Daquin, militaire au parcours exceptionnel et tout premier chef d'état-major de l'armée ivoirienne.
Senegal and Mauritania have achieved a major milestone in their joint gas project, opening the first well at the Greater Torture Amayim offshore natural gas field. The field, developed by BP, Cosmos Energy, SMH, and Petrosen, aims to produce 2.5 million tons of liquefied natural gas per year. The start of production was initially expected in late 2024, but has been pushed back to this year. Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has promised to ensure the optimal and transparent exploitation of oil and gas resources for the benefit of the national economy. The GTA project marks a significant step towards Senegal's goal of becoming a major player in the global energy market. Now, Zimbabwe has officially abolished the death penalty after President Emmerson Mnangagwa signed into law an act that will commute to jail time the sentences of around 60 prisoners on death row. Well, speaking on the development, the executive director of Amnesty International Zimbabwe, Lucia Masuka, applauded the government for taking this step. There has been a moratorium on executions in the Southern African country since 2005, although courts have continued to hand down the death sentence for crimes including murder, treason, and terrorism. The Death Penalty Abolition Act says courts can no longer deliver a sentence of capital punishment for any offense, and any existing death sentences would need to be commuted to jail time.
We applaud the government for taking this important step in terms of aligning our laws to international standards. You may be aware that the optional protocol on the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights provides for the abolition of the death penalty. So this step is also a step towards aligning our laws to international standards. And presently we have about 62 people who are under the death sentence. And what this piece of legislation means for them is that they are going to be sentenced afresh before the High Court.
I think a man or a woman should just die a natural death. If he has committed a crime that deserves death sentence, I think it's better for that person to stay so long in prison than having him killed or having a death sentence.
Well, I think it's supposed to be abolished because biblically one is supposed to take someone's life. So therefore, I think someone should receive a severe punishment instead.
Now, the suspect in the deadly New Orleans attack, Shamsuddin Jabbar, posted videos indicating that he was inspired by ISIS hours before ramming a truck into a New Year's crowd. This was revealed by the U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday. Biden added that the situation is very fluid, and the law enforcement and intelligence community are continuing to look for any connections, associations, or co-conspirators. He said that investigation included the execution of search warrants at various locations in New Orleans and other states, An operation by the FBI and other law enforcement officials at a traffic intersection in Houston, and questions as to whether there could be any connection to an attempt to blow up a Tesla Cybertruck in front of a Trump hotel in Las Vegas.
He served in the United States Army on active duty for many years. The FBI has reported to me the killer was an American citizen, born in Texas. He served in the United States Army on active duty for many years. He also served in the Army Reserve until a few years ago. The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill. The ISIS.
Now, at least 10 people, including 2 children, were killed by a gunman who launched a shooting spree in a restaurant near the southern Montenegro city of Santinje that spanned several locations. Police launched an hour-long manhunt for the suspect, who shot himself in the head when he was surrounded, Police Chief Lazar Shepanovic told reporters. In his killing spree in Baji's village near Santinje, the 45-year-old gunned down at least 10 people, 2 of whom were aged 10 and 13, according to the police. Interior Minister Danilo Saranovic said that the gunman involved in a deadly shooting has died after a suicide attempt.
Nalazi I možemo da kažemo da je akcija uspješno izvršena. Dakle, ovo lice je bilo izolovano od strane ekspresnog djelovanja policijskih službenika i onog trenutka kada je vidjelo da se nalazi u bezizlaznoj situaciji, ovo lice je pokušalo da izvrši samoubistvo. Nije na licu mjesta podleglo povredama, ali smo u međuvremenu, dakle, na putu, odnosno tokom transporta ka kliničkom centru Crne Gore, ovo lice podleglo povredama.
Let's talk business now. Economists have expressed concerns about the break in the January to December budget cycle as Nigeria steps into the new year without an appropriation bill for the first time in years. This comes as President Bola Tinubu submitted a proposed 2025 budget worth 49.7 trillion naira to the National Assembly on Wednesday, December 18, 2024. This bill, which has passed the first and second readings at the National Assembly, is now in the committee stage. The Joint National Assembly Committee on Appropriation is expected to lay its report on the budget on Friday, 31st January 2025, thus seeing the budget passed in early February and sent for presidential assent. According to the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007, the proposed budget should have been presented at least 3 months before the next financial year. However, that was not the case for this year's proposed budget.
Promote equitable income.
And to sports, Executive Council member of the Ghana Football Association, Samuel Abuja, has urged the Black Stars to step up their performance in the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. The senior national team's failure to qualify for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations, having finished at the bottom of Group F with 3 points, left a lot of unanswered questions about the competence of the team. Ababi, who also serves as the Greater Accra Football Association chairman, charged the senior national team to improve their performance in the qualifiers. The Black Stars will hope to improve their performance when they take on Chad and Madagascar in the matchday 5 and 6 games in the World Cup qualifiers in March. Still in sports, Ivorian international Seko Fofana has signed a 4.5-year deal with Rennes after 18 months playing the Saudi Arabia. The League One club announced the £20 million deal on Wednesday. The 29-year-old, with 22 international caps, previously captained Rennes, leading them to Champions League qualification in 2023. He later joined Analyst, but struggled for form both there and during a loan spell at Al-Ettifaq. Now, with Rennes currently 12th in League One, just 4 points above the relegation zone, the club turned to Fofana to bolster the midfield. Fofana reunites with Rennes executive president Arnaud Poli, his former colleague at Rennes. Still talking sports, the world's oldest Olympic champion and Holocaust survivor Agnes Ketti has died at the age of 103. A press official, Thomas Roth, confirmed that Ketti passed away on Thursday in a Budapest hospital after she was hospitalized with pneumonia last week. As Hungary's most successful gymnast, Ketti won 10 Olympic medals, all of them after reaching the age of 30, against much younger competitors, including 5 gold medals in Helsinki 1952 and Melbourne 1956. Well, that's all on the news at this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. Now, we did tell you that President Tinubu assures state governors dismisses fears over takeover of local government structures over autonomy. We also mentioned organized labor pushes for minimum wage increase in 2025 amid rising inflation. And finally, we told you reactions trail abolition of death penalty in Zimbabwe. You can watch News Central live on DSTV, channel 422, StarTimes, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Blessings Osugu.